Retractable hoses have revitalized the concept of a built-in vacuum. And you will notice if you're researching, there are different options. Today, you can get Hide-a-Hose, which is the OG, the original developer of the modern retractable hose system. And there is also a product called the Chameleon, which is newer on the market. And they're different. So let's go through what are the pros and cons. The Hide-a-Hose is the kind of the trade name like Kleenex or Shop Vac or Band-Aid. People call retractable hoses Hide-a-Hoses. And so they've got a lot going for them with that. The original Hide-a-Hose design was much bigger, and the over the years they've gotten smaller. So the door, this is the last generation, the HS4000. This is a pretty big thing to have on your wall. This is probably 5 inches by 8 inches or so. And then inside is the hose locking mechanism. The seal is on the door in any Hide-a-Hose, and the hose lock is this rubber collar that when you flip this lever, it squeezes on the outside of the hose, and then you turn the system on with the red switch. The newer design is the HS5000, and this is much smaller. This is actually fairly close. It's only a little bit bigger in size than a regular vacuum valve inlet like this. And the HS5000 opens up like this, either upward or downward, depending on whether this valve is installed with the hose stored above it or below it. And once again, we have our hose lock, which goes left to right, and our power switch is here. The seal is on the door. And in this case, we are using this with a hose without a sock on it. And that is something that we did because we found that when we used hoses with socks on them, the fabric sleeve originally was to protect the woodwork in your house. But even though the sock made it retract really nicely, this locking collar would grip that sock, and the sock would tend to bunch up at one end of the hose, and it would get really tight at the other end of the hose, causing it to retract poorly. So we went to the non-socked hoses, and that solved that problem. So you pull the hose out, however much you need to vacuum the space you're cleaning, you lock it, you turn it on. Now we're vacuuming. We can attach any kind of tools to this. If I put my hand on the end of the hose, you'll hear we have a little bit of leakage. Recall that the way this works is the seal is made from that rubber piece against the outside of the hose. Well, on the outside of the hose, we have a spiral leakage path because this hose is threaded. So you get a little bit of air loss from this. It's not a lot, but it's there. To retract, we're going to unlock, and then I'll put my hand over the end, and it'll pull itself back in. When I close the door, it'll hit the switch, turning off our system. Two things to note: you really can't close the door with the lock engaged. It just won't, you'll have to force it. And the other thing, just kind of sensory wise, that plastic snap I don't love, but it is really nice to be able to lock the hose in an intermediate position. Okay, let's go to the Chameleon. This was developed by HP VacuFlow about 3 years ago, and the door has a magnetic closure, so it's got a really nice tactile feel, and it has a detent to stop at the highest position. On the Chameleon, you'll notice there is not a seal on the door. The seal is provided from the hose end on this rubber ball inside the valve. So I can take the hose. You'll also notice the hose end is a little longer. It's a little bit easier to grip. And we are using a hose with a sock because we don't have to grip the outside of it. So the sock will stay where we put it. I can pull this out. Now on a Chameleon, the lock is automatic. I just pull, and now I've locked it. And when I turn this on, there is very little, if any, leakage thanks to the O-rings and the design of it. But you'll notice I had to pull the hose all the way out, didn't I? To release it, I'm going to give the hose a little twist, and now with my hand on the end, it'll suck itself back in. Now it's possible to have the hose part way out. I can vacuum like this. You'll notice it's starting to creep back in. So they have thought of that. If that's a big deal to you, if you'd really love to be able to take the hose halfway out and then vacuum, we can get a little hose lock. This is just a little seat clip. You shove that in there, and now the hose can't retract back up. So that's that. When I retract the hose all the way in, seating it on the ball also depresses the off position on the switch, turning the system off. If the door is open, you'll still get a seal, unlike the Hide-a-Hose. If this is open, you won't get suction at any of the other inlets. That's just how it is. So that's the Chameleon. I have left out one last very cool feature. Part of this technology is on the other end of the hose. If I twist this and keep twisting it, I can pull this all the way out. And on the end of the hose, we have a band that will activate a standard wall inlet in your home. So if you want to have what's called a hybrid retractable system, where you have one retractable hose to get the main part of the house, and then you have regular inlets down in the basement or up in the loft, then you can get the cam port. That's this little door here. This little door flips up. Now your system is sealed off as if the hose was in place. And I can take this very same hose out of the Chameleon valve and I can plug it in to a standard wall inlet. And that versatility, to me, is a wonderful thing, because retractable hoses are more costly than standard inlets, and maybe you don't want them all over your house. Having this in the main part of your house, where you can do the kitchen, the mudroom, and the entryway, and servicing the rest of the house with standard valves, to me is a beautiful thing. So you might have picked up on the fact by now that I'm a Chameleon guy. I really like these products, but I sell both, I install both, because there are pros and cons, and at the end of the day, the choice is yours. Thank you for watching.